at the University of Ottawa and joins us this morning. Good morning, Raywat.
Good morning.
So we see these case numbers going up, and it doesn't feel the same as before when we've seen case numbers go up. So when you see us, jump, what is it, about 100 cases a day here in Ottawa, a few more cases getting into the double digits again, what does that say to you?
Well, it's not the same epidemic. Vaccines have definitely changed the face of the problem. I don't think we're going to be experiencing any more lockdowns or things like that, but we are going to experience some societal stress and an unnecessary toll on our healthcare system. So it is worrying, but it's not the apocalyptic stage it was, a year ago. I'm disappointed though. I thought we would be done with this thing by this point in the year, and the disappointment comes from two places. One is Delta became dominant and didn't have to, and the second is the vaccine uptake has been slower than I had anticipated. So to me, the takeaway is always we have it in our power to make this go away. This is not where we were last year, where so many unknowns were in place. Now we know how to control this disease. We just need the political will and the public enthusiasm to do so.
It does seem like on the vaccination front that we have hit a plateau. I know we've said that before, but it really feels like everything is kind of slowing down now, and we're in this kind of weird middle ground. Do you anticipate things to get better over the next month, I guess, in terms of more people getting vaccinated?
It depends on a lot of things. It depends on what the messaging looks like. It depends on how much misinformation is still floating about and how serious the situation becomes. It also depends on whether vaccine passports become, accepted in Ontario, as they are becoming in several U.S. states and Quebec. The Quebec experience suggests that the implementation of that passport system really ratcheted up the demand for vaccines. So absent those things, ordinarily I'm optimistic, but these days I'm not feeling it. I'm feeling that we've hit a asymptotic plateau with vaccine uptake, and that's disappointing. So we now have to look at rolling out new incentives, new communication tools, new cajoling strategies for getting that last kilometer of vaccination done.
And just on that point, the vaccine passports, there's still details that we're waiting for from Quebec, but did I hear you say that it has led to a little bit more demand for vaccines on that side of the border?
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that the bookings for vaccines ratcheted up dramatically once that announcement was made. So people realize, I can't be doing certain things. I should look into getting those shots. So yeah, there are different categories of people who haven't been vaccinated. There are those who can't for medical reasons or for eligibility reasons. There are the hardcore anti-vaxxers for whom this is a kind of religion and we have to deal with them in a different way. There are the vaccine hesitant who are unsure of the science and the safety, and we have to deal with them carefully and with some care and empathy. There are those who are apathetic, like have nothing against vaccines, it's just not a priority for them. And there are those who really want to get vaccinated, but they don't know how, or they can't get time off work, or they have childcare duties, or they haven't got a car, or whatever it might be. Vaccine passports really affect the apathetic. So those who feel, my immune system is strong and I'm young and healthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now there's an additional incentive for it, and that's a fairly large chunk of the population. So I think that slight bit of policy-driven cajoling will move that proportion of the vaccine resistant forward.
And do you think that is the I guess best approach here? Is just trying to incentivize more and more people to get the vaccine? I guess at what point do you switch from the carrot to the stick? I guess.
Yeah, this is the danger, but a characteristic of a liberal democracy that is also our Achilles heel is that we can't compel people to do things that violate their body integrity, and we shouldn't convince them or compel them to do so. What we should do is coerce, cajole, and incentivize. We do this in other parts of society. You can't go to school unless you've had these 9 mandatory vaccinations. Doesn't mean you can't get an education, you just can't go to school. You can't drive a car unless you get a license. It doesn't mean you can't get to work. You can still take public transit, but you need a license. So long as we have other avenues for people to get things done, it's not unethical and anti-liberal and anti-democratic to require vaccination for certain things, right? So it is, I think, the best way forward in our kind of society to provide avenues for those who are resistant, but make it easier to get certain services in society if you are vaccinated.
And just on that point, I guess, Ontario doesn't look like we are going to put a vaccine passport in place. At least that's the stance that the government is taking right now. So failing that, how do you see the government effectively incentivizing others to pick up the shot to get this last, 10% or 15% of people with vaccines.
Yeah, it's disappointing that they've got that stance. We've always got the options of province level incentivization like they do in some American states, like offer a lottery system. For every vaccination, you get your name put in a pot and maybe you win $1 million, And that's disappointing for those of us who lined up earlier to get our shots. We're not eligible for that, that potential windfall anymore. But that's probably the most ethical way to incentivize. Some U.S. states have offered free beer and actual cash rewards. That rubs me the wrong way. There are ways of rolling out a vaccine passport that is less intrusive and problematic. For example, if you make it possible for businesses to identify who is vaccinated and who isn't, or who is immune and who isn't, without telling them what to do with that information, then you just let the market forces drive it. Some restaurants will use it, some won't. Some theaters will use it and some won't. And it'll become clear after a while that those who use it have better market flow, better customer flow, and over a period of time that will incentivize the uptake. So what I'm hopeful is that we'll make the tool available, but won't compel its use, but then its use becomes normalized anyway. But your question is, what do we do if we don't do that? I don't know, frankly. I think other tools are being introduced, like more mandatory masking, like more strategic mandatory testing in certain work areas. That's what we have to do to control the outbreak while we wait for people to get vaccinated.
And as we wait, the virus obviously continues to spread. We've seen issues with the Delta variant out in BC, the Okanagan region, dealing with some unvaccinated people getting outbreaks or causing some outbreaks there. Alberta's also lifting some restrictions as well. I guess, is Ontario kind of well-placed, I guess, based on everything else that's going on in Canada to get through a potential fourth wave, do you think?
We're amazingly doing better than many of the big provinces that have suffered with COVID. And I'm really surprised and motivated and enthused by that observation. So we didn't open up as quickly as I thought we would have, thankfully. We didn't open schools in spring, thankfully. We are cajoling and pushing vaccine uptake a little better than some other places. And we're looking at, how best to open schools in September with at least some planning involved, which is good. So are we better positioned to absorb a fourth wave? I think so. Then we're better positioned than some provinces. But at the same time, we're not as well positioned as we could be. Right? Our healthcare system is still struggling because we haven't got sufficient healthcare workers. There's a nurse-to-patient ratio that is untenable in this province. That's a long-term issue, but it's acute right now in this time frame. We still have to look at how to make schools safe with ventilation. Right? Do we have time to improve the HEPA filters and air purifiers and things like that? So much going on. What I'm emboldened by is a possibility that vaccination will become eligible to children under 12 sometime this fall. That'll be a game changer when that happens. So anticipate some big news sometime this fall.
And just on that front, any time from right now, I was even hearing at last check, it could be by the end of the year. I know this is more south of the border, but could be by the end of the year by the time Pfizer's vaccine gets approved for those under 12. Do you have any kind of time frame right now?
I don't. If I were a betting man, and I kind of am, I would say by November we would make a decision in Canada about that. I have no reason to say that, except that I'm pulling that number out of thin air. But I anticipate the word is that we'll get safety data for that population sometime soon. That gives us a month or two to make that decision. So I wouldn't be surprised if kids that age are lining up to be vaccinated by the end of this year.
So run a headline on CTV this morning that Raywat Deonandan says, kids vaccinated by November, guaranteed.
Yeah, that'll happen, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, I know parents are waiting for that, so we'll wait and see. We'll leave it there. Raywat Deonandan, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Take care. So Raywat Deonandan, science communicator, epidemiologist at the University. We'll leave it there.